This is the sixth International Freedom Cell Conference call. We've been hosting these, I think we started earlier this year or last year. And as many of you noticed, freedom cells and these concepts have become increasingly important as we're dealing with COVID craziness. More people are thinking about how to take care of their friends, their families, and how to decentralize and localize and unplug from systems that are not really representing us and our values. So we are really encouraging everyone to use the Freedom Cell website, freedomcells.org. I was just showing it on screen. If you haven't joined yet, please do, especially if you're on this call, then you should definitely be joining. I'm going to go over a couple of brief kind of house cleaning things, recent updates on the websites, and some things that I've been testing out that could be useful for Freedom Cells. Then I know John's got a brief update, and then we're just going to go right into our guests, because that is, I think, the most important part of today. We will be hearing from Johan in India, and if Dave shows up, we'll be hearing from Dave in Australia. And even if he doesn't show up, I actually did an interview with him just yesterday, and I recommend go checking that out, because it's really insane to hear the things that our brothers and sisters in Australia are having to deal with. And the positive side, though, is that they're using Freedom Cells to work around all the problems and to figure out how to still survive and thrive even in the midst of the craziness. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, because we did make a couple updates to the Freedom Cells website. And first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who is patient with us with the website. We know it's not perfect. We know that there are people have sometimes had trouble signing up with it, like the verification email doesn't work. I get people who email me directly, and then I manually create their account for them just because we want it to be used. But even despite all that, we have over 4,500, actually it might be up to 4,800 members at this point. Let me see if I can check real quick. And we still have about 500 people waiting to be confirmed, because either they didn't get the confirmation email, or maybe they just forgot about it. But if you know a friend or somebody who has used the Freedom Cells website before or was interested in it, invite them to come back, because right now we have 575 pending accounts. We have 4,831 active accounts. That doesn't mean everybody's on there all the time. As you guys know, sometimes you'll message people and people don't respond, but it is what it is. We can't really force people to make use of the the website. But yeah, we've grown to 4,800 members now all around the world. So awesome. Thank you to everybody who is out there doing the work. Myself and John are out here trying to do interviews and promote it. Some of you might have seen John's recent interview on the Tom Woods show. I'll let him talk about that. It was a really great interview, and it has definitely brought more people to the website. So we're happy about that. And the other thing you can see here, if you go to, for those who just don't know, members, you have two different maps on here. The member map is the one that I was just showing you guys. I was just searching. That's where you go and look for individuals in your area and search, the miles, how close are they to you. The cells is more specific, clearly, to the cells, the groups that have been created. And what I always tell people to do is you have to make sure that when you're on the account, you go here to your my profile, you have to update your location. If you've never actually added your location, and I don't mean tell it your house address. Some people have emailed and saying, I don't want to add my home address. I don't either. I wouldn't do that. But if you want to put the city or town that you're closest to, you have to add your location. Otherwise, you won't be added to the map, and then people can't find you. So make sure you add your location, and the same thing goes with the cells. When you create a cell, you have to make sure you put a cell location and that it's showing up on the map. I know some people have said that their cells weren't showing up. So yeah, I just want to invite everybody to make sure that you are using the maps and check them once a week if you can, once every couple weeks. I know some of you are in the situation where there's nobody in your area, but people are constantly coming. People are constantly, this is just a continuous flow of people coming in at this point. So just keep checking back. And I know it can be discouraging, but some of our most active members, like Lisa, who's on this call, have been at it for a couple of years until things finally break and people finally start showing up. But what I want to show you here is we did add, for those of you who actively use Telegram, which I know many of you do, we have a number of Telegram cells, and we added that list. Now when you go to cells, you can find the cell map, the cell directory map, or the cell directory is cells that have been created specifically on the website, but now we have this listing, and I'm sure there are more that we need to update. We have Texas, Northeastern US, Pacific Northwest, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Oklahoma, Tulsa, Atlanta, Georgia, Wisconsin. I think somebody just said yesterday they created one in Paraguay. Anarchy and Freedom in India, for Freedom, that should say. Dave created one for Australia I need to add on here. We have a couple in Mexico we need to add. And we also have a mastermind group. We have an off topic for those who just like to rant and talk about news unrelated to Freedom Cells. And then there's a dank memes group as well. So if you are joining, I do encourage you to create cells on the website. But if you're also active on Telegram, there are other active Freedom Cell members on Telegram, and you can create a cell and connect with us. You can either hit up John or me, or just email the website, and we will add your cell, your Telegram cell listed here. But I do absolutely encourage you to do the same thing. Make sure you're making use of the website. As time goes on, it's going to get more and more functional. The last thing on the website, the events are working. Everything's working here. I know for a while there was problems, so if you stopped making your events on here, please do. As you can see, today's event is listed here. Another freedom, we have a Texas Freedom Cell Summit in Houston coming up. John did one of these in Austin recently, so lots of events are happening, and just make use of the website is basically all I want to say on that. The other point that I'll make briefly, and then I'll pass it on to John, because I know he's got some things to share, is, well, first off, I know we're going to have people constantly coming in, so if everybody could just remind the others, if you just joined us, the few of you just joined, go ahead, look at the participants tab, click on your name, and click on the rename button and add the city that you are closest to or that you're living in. If you scroll through, you're going to see all these different people listing where they're from. We have people all across the US and Mexico and India, Netherlands, elsewhere. So it'll be a great way for you guys to connect. We have a good amount of people in Dallas, Texas, across Texas and California. So if you can, just go ahead and rename yourself. Thank you, Mackenzie. Mackenzie's in Portland. Danny, not sure where you're from. Michael Port, Alejandro, Thomas, Zara. If you guys want to contribute that way, go ahead and do it. Now, the last thing I'll say is, I was just talking about Telegram. People are using Telegram for communication, and I think Telegram is good for a lot of things, but many of you are aware also that Telegram is not open source, so there is some concern about who actually owns Telegram and what they have access to and those sort of things. And there's also the fact that the only encryption that exists on Telegram is basically when you do an actual private chat. Like when we're communicating groups and channels, like for example on our Freedom Cells chats, those are not encrypted. So unless you're specifically creating a private chat on Telegram, then it's not encrypted. Whereas I found this other, I've been experimenting with different apps. Two of them they're like team building. Signal, we can get into some of these debates. I'd love to hear people suggest the ones that they're interested in. I have issues with Signal because it automatically tells people who have your phone number when you join, and I don't like that. So, I'm not into that. I want people to know that I'm joining something if I don't want them to know that I'm joining something. And it seems to automatically do that. So I've been looking at other team building apps. One is called Zulip. I'll type that in real quick. Zulip, you can look that up. Unfortunately, also not encrypted, but it is open source, and it has some benefits to it. But one that I found that is encrypted, and I've been experimenting with the free trial this week because it does have a paid version, is called Wire. And so Wire's mobile and desktop. What you're looking at here is, so I created an active Freedom Cells chat, and me and Storm, who I think is in this call, we're just experimenting and trying to see what you can do. And basically you can do every single thing you can do in Telegram. You can also set your messages to disappear after 10 seconds, 5 minutes, 1 hour, similar to Signal, similar to Wicker and those things like that. I created a Houston Freedom Cell over here just to kind of start experimenting. And so people have to get an invite in order to be able to join. Like we have to have their email to add them here. But everything here is encrypted. So the rooms are encrypted. The one-to-one chats are encrypted. The video calls, the phone calls, they're all encrypted. There is an app. Just look up Wire, or if you go to wire.com, you can kind of find out more about it. And then the other thing that I really like, which I think could be helpful for vetting people for cells, because people have talked about, well, how do we know if we can trust people? Which every cell's got to kind of come up with their own vetting process. But you can create, let me see if I can show you here. You can create what they call guest rooms. Okay, right here, create guest room. So let's say that you are interviewing somebody to be a potential member of the cell or for a job or just all kinds of uses. You can create a guest room where the people who you know and trust can come in, but you can also invite the other guests to join. So that way they don't get into the Freedom Cell chat. They're in a sort of private, which is also encrypted, guest room that's separate from the other conversations. So that could be useful for a number of different reasons. And I definitely recommend checking it out. Me and Storm were experimenting with it. It's open now, so if you want to experiment with it, when we go back to, or if you want to put your emails, I'll get them and I can add different people. We can start playing with it. I'm still figuring out the ins and outs, but basically just like we have Telegram and we have different groups, We could create different groups for what I have here is Active Freedom Cells, Houston Freedom Cell, and then you can get more specific with it. I also will show you guys Zulip really quick, and then I'm gonna shut up for a minute. But I created a Freedom Cells Zulip chat. So this is a little more complicated, so hopefully it's not too confusing. If you use Slack or Discord, it'll look similar, but the difference is, so here's the core team. Let's say this is all the Freedom Cells chat right here, right? You can create these, what they call streams, or kind of like channels. So I created one for defense, right? But then you can create topics for community defense, and that's even more specific. So it threads all of these, so it's not just lost in one Telegram chat that's about defense, and then you have to go through and try to find. You can get more and more specific by creating what they call topics. So I added community defense or personal defense, and then you can come here and reply to this thread, or you could create a new topic. I added parenting, and in parenting we have unschooling and traveling tips, and then permaculture. We got general permaculture questions, water catching, storage, technology. So this is Zulip. It's open sourced. It's not encrypted, but these are some of the tools I've been experimenting with. I encourage, if anybody's interested, I will add you to this. freedomcells.zulipchat.com is the team, and this is, I think, is more for team building. So say you have your specific Freedom Cell and you guys are trying to plan out all the different projects you want. This could be something that's helpful for that. And you can also private message each other within this, just like you can on other platforms. So Wire and Zulip, those are two things that I experimented with this week. I would definitely recommend using both of them. And for those who are concerned about privacy or who want to practice privacy, I would encourage you to stop using Telegram as much, or to make sure at least, I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, but if you're going to use Telegram, just be aware that unless you're specifically doing a private chat, it's not encrypted. And that since it's not open source, we really don't know who created the code. We don't know what's in the code. There's people's concern that it came from the Russians or whatever. I don't know. But it's a great tool, and there's other tools that are similar but also offer encryption. So that's where I'm going to shut up for now and pass it on to John. I'm going to make you the host, brother. And then after John is Telegram open source? I had heard that it wasn't. But I do know that what Wire has over that is that everything in Wire is encrypted as opposed to Telegram. The infrastructure is closed. Thank you for that clarification, Martin. All right, John, I'm going to make you the host, and let's continue on. Where'd you go? And again, if you just joined, please do add your city next to your name. Here, I'm going to unmute you, John. I think Zulip does cost, but we'll figure that all out. John, you there? I'm going to shut up now.
Can you hear me? Yes?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Is it clear?
It's kind of quiet.
Okay, let me do this. Can y'all hear me? Check 1, 2.
Yeah, it's just a little faded.
Oh, well, does it sound better now? Hello, hello, hello. Okay, people are saying they can hear me. All too quiet. All speak up. How about now? Is this good? Okay. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us today. What a lot of beautiful faces. And for those of you that aren't sharing your video, man, your names are really beautiful. Today we are gathered here on the 6th International Conference Call. We have experienced so much growth as of late in the network, so that is super exciting and inspiring. And I always like to start off when I talk about Freedom Cells, just kind of setting an intention and throwing out what we're really aiming for. And that is essentially to create a free society within the crumbling state apparatus. And this is something that will have immense benefit in the future as we maximize our numbers, because there's strength in numbers. But in the present time, there's all sorts of opportunity to benefit your life and to protect yourself and to prepare from the coming explosion in civil unrest and the growth of the technocracy. So super exciting work that we're all doing. I want to thank everyone for participating. I had the honor of being interviewed by Tom Woods about Freedom Cells less than a week ago, and that really caused a nice spike in interest from the Freedom Cell Network. And I've done an interview with him before. He's done over like 1,755 podcasts. Tom Woods is a libertarian thinker, author, for those not familiar. and he has been around for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. So he has a huge audience. So I previously did an interview about Kratom, and there's just a huge spike and then consistent flow of interest for the next month or so. And then there's ripple effects for other interviews. So super exciting. If you guys haven't heard that interview, I posted it in the chat. I'll post it again. It's a really good introduction to Freedom Cells for those of you that are looking for resources to help recruit people and give them a better understanding of what it's all about. It was really concise, and I believe I delivered it in a way that was really consumable and broke down the benefits of what it is that we're trying to do here. So I'll share that as a link, and it'll be a good opportunity if someone's like, whoa, what's this Freedom Cell thing you've been talking about? That's a good interview to send them to. But of course, the best way to inspire people to join the network is to tell them your personal stories and successes that you've had, and how having a inner cadre group or being connected with a regional group has benefited your life. And so for some people, there's already been immense benefit, like Lisa Bowman in Tulsa and her community there and her crew. It's not her crew, but the group of people there in Tulsa, they have an inner cadre group. And recently at Mid-Continental Liberty Fest, we were introduced to some Freedom Cell folks from Arkansas and Southeast Missouri. And now they're linking up to have kind of a regional middle cadre thing going. And Lisa has had great benefit, and the folks that are involved as well. They recently went and dug out a garden in her backyard. This is something that she said would have taken 2 or 3 days worth of work if she did it alone, but thanks to the help of the Freedom Cell group, they knocked it out in a few hours. So that's the really low-hanging fruit thing that you can do with your groups. But the two things I want to relay are, I want to encourage everyone. Right now, there's 42 people on the call. There's over 4,800 people that are on the freedomcells.org website. And as Derrick mentioned, not all of those people are organizing into this structure of an inner cadre group, which is approximately 8 people. 8 people is the optimal number for creativity. Then those 8 people link up with other inner cadre groups to form what we call a middle cadre, which perhaps spreads over a state or a large city, right? And then the middle cadres, which are approximately 8 groups of 8, they link up with other middle cadres to form meta cadres. And this is the structure of the network. And it's innovative because it allows for the network to grow in numbers, but as it grows, it doesn't grow hierarchical, or it doesn't create a need for bureaucracy. And whenever we start making big group decisions, or pulling all of our money to start our own health share so we can opt out of health insurance, or eventually pooling our money so we can fund a private security agency to keep us safe as we opt out of the technocracy, right? The network grows horizontally and essentially self-replicates. So if you had, say in Austin, we have a middle cadre group of approximately 64 people. We don't yet, but we will. And as it grows, instead, there's just a meta cadre, a group of 8 middle cadres, right? So a lot of times I feel like I lose people when I start talking about the structure, but ultimately I want to point out like where it is that we want to go and the importance of getting into this structure, because it allows us to grow and scale and benefit one another in a manner that's decentralized. So for those of you that are on the call, I strongly encourage you, if you aren't yet part of an inner cadre group, or if you're part of a group but you guys haven't formed up and said like, all right, we're going to be the cadre that works together to set common goals, I strongly encourage you to do that. Even if you start with 2 people, you and your buddy that are in the area, or you and your friend that's a prepper, or you and your friend that's a libertarian, and y'all go to events and meetings together, start with just a couple people. The benefits are immense when you get on the same page with a small group and start working towards common goals. Another simple strategy is if you're in an area and there's already like 10 or 20 people, or this is like the existing libertarian meetup or the Liberty on Tap, like in Tulsa, Oklahoma, go ahead and form a middle cadre group, even if you're not linked up into smaller inner cadres. That way the group can meet as a whole, the group can work together as a whole, the group can do in-person meetings and social gatherings. So from there, you can say like, okay, I didn't know that I was really close to this person in geographic proximity, or wow, this lady I met has kids. They're about the same age of my kids. Maybe they could be possible candidates for a inner cadre group. Another great strategy that they're employing in Tulsa is in your area, you host a general like voluntarist meetup or free thinker meetup or permaculture meetup or whatever. And this acts as a invitation to find the others, find the like-minded people, and then you have just common topics, how to garden, whatever, a freedom topic, freedom speaker, but you also give a pitch for the Freedom Cell Network every time. And then I just want to say this last thing. Well, I'd like to do a challenge for everyone in the network that we grow from around 4,800, which we are at today. Just a couple months ago, we were at 2,000. This has been growing exponentially thanks to COVID and renewed energy and push and promotional stuff. And so I'd like to set the goal, and all of us set this goal together. I think it's an accomplishable goal. We could even go bigger, but we'll go bigger in 2021. But by the end of the year, by the end of 2020, we have 10,000 people that are part of the Freedom Cells website, right? Now, again, not all of those people are organized or even active, and some of them are just using it as a social network of sorts, which again, the intention is to create a space, a digital space where we can find each other and organize in real life. But I think that's a good indicator of the number of people that have expressed interest in participating in the network and are going so far as to register and engage in some degree. So I'd like to see us take that number from 4,800 to 10,000 by the end of the year. And so what that's going to take is each and every one of the people that are on this call and involved in the network getting active. Okay. On the last call, there was a lot of concerns, and we always hear, yeah, I went on the map, but I was the only person in my community. What's going on? Or like, wow, I thought this thing was growing faster. I'm the only one in a given area. And that type of thinking, that is not the way that we ought to go about this, in my opinion. For this to grow, it's going to take all of us stepping outside of our comfort zone and engaging people. Some people have it easy. Some people have been active and activists and organizers for 10, 15 years. Some people are already tapped into a libertarian, voluntarist, permaculture, unschooling, homeschooling community in their area. But some people are what I call a lone wolf. And so in those circumstances, it's important to go out and find the others and do the building, right? So I'm going to do a workshop soon. It's not scheduled, but all of you guys will hear about it. That's about recruiting and organizing. And I'll lay out some strategies and tactics and host a meeting and how to engage in a conversation, how to find the others. There's a significant section on the Freedom Cell working manual that I posted a second ago, which I'll post again. And it gives some advice on where to go to recruit, so to speak. But again, if we're going to grow this thing, and if you're the only person in an area, that's not a problem, right? Try to see problems as solutions. And so ask yourself, instead of asking yourself, why isn't there people in my area? Boy, that's a bummer. Ask yourself, what can I do in order to go find people that might be interested and excited to participate in this really cool idea? So yeah, the other goal, the other challenge that I'd like to do is I'd like to issue a challenge. I'll try to come up with some sort of prize, maybe crypto or some encryption tool or some training or something for the group. But I would like to challenge all of those folks that are already actively in the process of building a middle cadre group, which is a collection of inner cadres. Like Tulsa, Oklahoma, they already have 3 or 4 inner cadres. Dallas-Fort Worth perhaps has one of the biggest concentrations of Freedom Cells. We could even do a middle cadre with the folks in Houston, the folks in Dallas, and the folks in Central Texas where I am, and it's a middle cadre. And then as each of our different cities grows and grows, they each become their own meta cadre. But we'll figure all that out. But the challenge is, I would like to challenge a given region or area, the first one to come up with a formal middle cadre group, which is approximately 8 groups that have 8. Now, again, we're in our beginning stage, so if it's 6 groups of 4, that still works. Or if it's 8 groups, some of them have 8, some of them have 2, whatever. Let's just try to get to a group having 8 inner cadre groups in a certain area. Because there's all sorts of stuff that we can do when it comes to decision making and supporting one another and defending one another and really having a a force of energy and activity to go do the garden, to go volunteer for the emergency that happened, the natural disaster, to defend one another if the government comes and tries to take someone away. So those are the two challenges. Let's get the network to over 10,000 people by the end of the year. And then anybody that's already on the road towards having a middle cadre group, around 8 groups of 8, redouble your efforts in your recruiting. And I think that'll be a good boost of energy and excitement and building and organizing for the network. All right, thank you so much. Somebody says, what about being infiltrated by government agencies? That question comes up all the time. It came up at the Oklahoma summit that we did recently, the Mid-Continental Summit. Someone said, I've been wanting to join for a couple years. I've heard about it for a while, but I have a daughter. That's my big focus. And I'm concerned that some militia members will join and want to do violence, right? Or everyone's always concerned that there's an infiltrator that's a provocateur or an FBI agent. Well, here's how I respond to that. First, just to point out, if there's like an asshole or someone that has some really big social dysfunctions that causes trouble and infighting and curses at people, that's just as damaging as if it's a federal agent that's engaging in those types of COINTELPRO activities. It really matters not if they're FBI or if they're personal, except for information gathering. But we're not doing anything criminal or anything, so whatever. And the other question is, if someone is concerned that the government's going to come hurt them or attack them or imprison them for participating in the network, I just want to point out that government harms people for doing absolutely nothing all the time. Perfect example is Sandra Bland here in Texas that was pulled over. She like hardly stood up for her rights, very softly, and then she ended up dead in a jail cell a couple of days later. So just because you're not engaged in a freedom cell movement or engaging in radical behavior doesn't mean that you're safe from the government. And I will say that as the technocracy grows, more and more people are going to be compelled to opt out. And when that time comes, you're going to want to have the strength in numbers. It's like having a gun, right? They say it's better to have a gun and not need it than to need a gun and not have it. It's better to be part of a network, even if it's radical and we talk about opting out and we're pretty extreme
Hey, John,
to what it is we're trying to accomplish.
your audio is like it cut out again.
Okay, well, it's better to have a freedom cell network and not need it than to need a freedom cell network and not have it. And just want to throw that out. The last thing is, Mike at this Oklahoma festival pointed out when someone brought that question up that, you know, if you're not feeling a little uncomfortable in some of your activism and your activities, then maybe you're not engaged in a radical enough behavior, right? There's a lot of really nasty stuff going on. And if we don't do our part to protect our family and in the bigger picture, inspire others and show them there's another way to relate to one another as humans besides the state, then the future is really, really going to be bleak and dark. That's not a conspiracy theory anymore. This is stuff we've been researching and talking about for 10 to 20 years, and it's upon us and it's escalated. So there is the chance that someone infiltrates. There is the chance that there's a COINTELPRO activity that takes place as our strength grows. But there's a greater chance that if we do nothing, then we're going to be totally screwed when all of the technology and police state, surveillance state is in place to where it makes what we're doing right now a lot harder to accomplish. So I'll leave it at that. There's strength in numbers. Don't be afraid, guys. It's okay to be afraid, but I would hope that having thousands of people and hundreds of people in your area will help to make you feel more secure as you begin to exercise your sovereignty. All right,
Absolutely.
thanks.
I'm going to chime in now, John. John, just to answer the question, to add what John said as well, I think that, I mean, we try to make it clear on the website that the Freedom Cells is a peaceful movement, that the only time anybody talks about what could be termed violence, we talk in terms of defending oneself, not the initiation of violence or anything like that. And just as an example, some of you, I'm sure, have seen the news about this recent arrest of these, alleged militiamen in Michigan. And I actually did a report on this yesterday, and it seems to be another incident where they were infiltrated by 2 FBI agents, 2 informants who were paid, who came in there and started saying things like, just like back in Austin, Texas with Brandon Darby, encouraging people, well, if you're not down to get violent, then you need to get out of here, or if you're not ready to take things to the next level, then you need to get out of here. If anybody starts talking like that and comes into a freedom cell, everybody should abandon that person as far as like working with them. Maybe they have some issues, they need to talk to somebody, but as far as that, I think it should, what I've done, and this is sort of a joke, but also not a joke, if I'm around somebody, because this has happened in my activism, and somebody starts talking about violence or whatever, I literally say, I have nothing to do with that statement. I say it out loud. I'm like, I have nothing to do with that statement, just in case anybody's listening. I'm not down with that. I'm not interested in that. And again, that might seem silly, but you never know who's listening. We're about to get it to our guests. John's got one more thing, but I do want to add, for those who joined late, if you can go ahead and click on the participants tab. I know most of you have done it. And then click rename and add the city or area that you are in. We have 47 people, almost 50 people all across the U.S., all across Mexico, and Johan is holding it down in India. It's already in the late evening for him, and he's holding on for us. I don't know if Dave made it. Dave, if you're on this call, please say something. We'd love to hear from you, but I do know it's like 4 a.m. in Australia. So if he doesn't make it, we'll forgive him. But let me just pass it back to John. Where'd you go, buddy? And then we'll hear from Johan.
Real quick, one more thing on that. People that are advocating for violence and stuff. One of the things I like about Derrick's work and the Conscious Resistance Network is that it's activism, it's anarchism, but there is also an added element of consciousness, right? And so I believe as a network, it's individual cells and individuals, but as we work together as a network, the network itself becomes an entity, right? Not a collective entity above the individuals, but it becomes essentially a living organism with a bunch of little cells. And those cells, the healthier the cells are, the healthier the whole is. The healthier the whole is, the healthier the cells are. And what we can do through communication, through being on the site, through being in these telegrams, is we can teach one another, and the whole network can learn from the individual actions. And so if we go into organizing already with consciousness of the fact that there are provocateurs, there are genuine people that want to do violence, then we can quickly weed it out and be aware of it. So too, when we're doing our groups, one of the biggest threats of failure, more so than the government crushing us, is infighting and conflict. So in addition to having a consciousness about the prospect of infiltrators, it's important that we all have a consciousness of how to resolve conflict peacefully, whether it's through nonviolent communication, going to the group elder, or the guy that's good at mediation. Let's be aware of that, because those are two big threats to our network: government infiltration, or a-hole violent infiltration, and infighting, crumbling, sucking up a lot of energy. And so through higher consciousness, being aware of that possibility and knowing what to do about it should it arise, I think that we will be able to be anti-fragile and we'll be able to protect one another. And the nature of this network itself, if there's a middle cadre group with like 5 groups of 8, and one of the people in those groups of 8 is calling for violence, first the 7 people can be like, hey, that's not what we're all about. But if the 7 people don't put their buddy in check that's part of their inner cadre, the other 4 groups can say either that guy goes from the group, our little middle cadre group, or we're going to distance ourselves from the entire cell that you have. So there's a little mechanism of correction, a check that the network has built into the infrastructure, which I think is another innovative way for us to deal with bad actors. All right, I just wanted to throw that out there because it's a really important thing. I fear that it's keeping people from getting involved. But again, we're a conscious network. We are peaceful, nonviolent resistance, although most of us don't reject the possibility of self-defense. So just throwing that out there, I think we're going to be okay. And again, it's better to have this network than to not do anything out of fear.
Absolutely. All right. So just one other thing I will mention, like John said, we're trying to create a holistic thing, so from the ground up, we have to build it with these principles that we believe in. And the more freedom cells are based in those principles, then the harder it will be to infiltrate. Because as we know, activist groups have been infiltrated since the 1950s in the United States and elsewhere around the world. One other reminder that we're going to go to Johan. If you do know anybody in Houston, or if you're in Texas and you want to come visit, later this month, October 29th, we're having the second in a series, the Texas Freedom Cell Network Summit. John did one in Austin. This one's going to be in Houston, October 29th. at Midtown Bar and Grill, which is a little restaurant that's very friendly to us. There will not be masks. There will not be any of that kind of crazy stuff because they are friendly with us. So if you know anybody who wants to come down there, Thursday, October 29th. And then the final thing for everybody, just I invite you to hang out for the whole call because we're going to hear some really interesting stuff from Johan. But then we're going to go ahead and try something new today. We're going to do these breakout groups, which I've been experimenting with on Zoom in my permaculture class. We have 47 people here. That is just about 7 different freedom cells almost. So we're going to split off into 7 different groups, and we're going to have a little group exercise, even though we're all in different spots of the world, and just try to see, okay, if we were a freedom cell and we need to take on one single objective, how would we all handle that? And we'll have like a 10-minute discussion with ourselves, and then we'll come back and share what we found. So really excited about that. But now we're going to go ahead to my brother Johan.
Hi, Derrick. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, brother. What's going on, man?
Hey, brother. I'm great, man. I'm actually traveling. I'm not in my city, but since I thought it'd be great to like come and share what we've been up to in India, so I made some time out in my travel schedule, and I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, man. I know it's later in the evening, so I'm gonna just hand it off to you and let you start. Basically, I think you can take it wherever you want, but I know for sure people would like to hear, for one, how is the COVID situation in India where you're at? Because I know that there's been some extreme stuff going on that people are concerned could come to the United States, just like, Dave's dealing with craziness in Australia. So talk a little bit about that and then get into, I mean, you guys have been doing so much awesome activism, which I would continue that. I mean, I would consider that all of this is freedom cell stuff, even if it's not necessarily, 8 people always working together. You're coming together in a localized, decentralized way. And for those who haven't been paying attention, Johan's been getting fact checked and censored and banned because of his mask videos in India. They've been going viral in India, and just so much good stuff happening. So I want to just pass it off to you. Let us know what's going on in India with COVID and how you've been using freedom cells and all the successes you guys have been having.
Sure, man. But just before I start, Derek, Telegram is encrypted even for normal chats. It's just that they split the encryption keys like throughout the world, so it's encrypted on the cloud. But I know what you're saying. Like in the private chat, it's end-to-end encrypted, but over here they have the keys, but then they split it in different places. So I just wanted to put that out
Gotcha,
there.
man. Thank you.
And as far as the COVID situation goes, as I said in the last video that we did, it's got much better. Like even in Mumbai where we stay, like currently I'm not there because I've been traveling, but in Mumbai, like I mean, as it was everywhere, you had like really harsh lockdowns, and I was on with you talking in like really early on, like April, May, as to all the draconian measures that were going on there with respect to like people walking back to the villages and dying, and just horrible behavior from the police with respect to beating people up on the streets who are out roaming around, when they're not supposed to be and all that. So that got much better. Like say at least like 2-3 months ago, it kind of eased out a lot, and now we're having a more easing of restrictions. Like now the restaurants have opened up and people are relaxing out a little bit. Like sort of my partner and I have been going out since the last 2 weeks since things have opened up, and it's pretty like it's quite relaxed now. And even the interstate restrictions are not there. So I just traveled to like 2 other cities today, so we've been like bus and car and things, so no checkpoints, no mandatory testing at state borders, none of that stuff is going on. So I mean, on that front things are pretty good, I would say. Like the worst is behind us, the worst is yet to come, but at least the worst of what has happened with respect to like what's going on right now is behind us. I strongly feel they'll be doing a second lockdown in November, December out here. So that's, I mean, we'll see what happens then. But at least as of now, things are much better, and we are kind of making the best of our time, trying to have fun right now and relaxing as much. But on the freedom cell side of things, I actually haven't updated it on the website yet because I just haven't got the time, like to be honest. But something I'll do like very soon. I'll put up all the cells that we have in India on the website, so you like you all will get a better idea as to how the movement is kind of growing here. But I'll just start with some basics as to like giving some background as to how we like really started through my channel, like how I really started bringing these ideas together. Because I mean, I don't know if people know out here, but I met Derrick like last year in Acapulco when I was visiting in Mexico. And the idea of freedom cells, like I'd been following Derrick since like 2-3 years before I even met him. So I was familiar with the idea, and the thing was that in India there wasn't any awareness to begin with, right? So it's like even if you want to get people together first, they need to ideologically understand like what you're trying to do. and then that's when they'll be able to come together and work with you. So I had to like kind of start that out here in terms of building awareness, and I'm very happy that my channel's been growing and my videos have been getting out to people out here in India. Like I'm sure you noticed, Derek, but I'm doing more Hindi content as of late because that's reaching more people. Like my Hindi videos are getting viewed a lot. So I'll throw in a couple of English ones here and there, but since I'm primarily trying to target the Indian audience, I'm focusing more on the native language out here, as well as like encouraging other people to start making content and do it in more
I think
local
that's
language.
really important, man. I just want to say I think that's really important. And one of the things that we want to do is try to get the Freedom Cell website where it's a click that you click and then it's in Hindi, or you click and it's in Spanish. Because if it's going to be truly international, we need to be, obviously we need people like you to be speaking to your community in the language that they speak, as well as people all around the world. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, definitely. And I look forward to the growth of the entire global community as well. And like, all of us just realizing that we're all there working in our own paths, kind of to put up our resistance against the tyranny that's growing. So I started out with growing myself through my channel, and the most effective strategy I found, I mean, like, people kind of who are new. So I just want to give you some background. Like before I started this, there was no community out here. There was like no sort of groups of people working on this like information and acting on it. So I started out as pretty much a fresher last year with none of any kind of say people who are making content and who have audiences behind them. They did, but they never channelized anyone towards action. So I was kind of starting from scratch. So for all the people who are on the call wondering that, okay, there's no one in my area, where do I start? You could start with making content and trying to reach the people in a community that way, because that's the entry point. Like, so whatever entrance of people have got into my group have come in like after seeing my videos, after having their mind changed, or them being more receptive, and like or they've already awake and they found my videos and then they joined my group, right? Whatever that is. So that entry point has to be there. It can either be online, like making content, but as people know, like a lot of content is being censored now, which is again one of the reasons why I give a lot of importance to my Telegram group, because that's where I want people to be and not be dependent upon say YouTube or Facebook or whatever. So you could reach out to people through the videos, or you could reach out to people through the flyers, which I'll come to in a bit, which is another strategy we use to like get more people informed in our own areas, as well as like get them to join the group. So the videos have been doing very well, and they've been reaching a lot of people, and those people have been joining our main group. So the strategy I use to vet people out is I put a form across, Derek, which I think you've seen. And then in that form, we just don't ask them like, okay, someone can answer yes, yes to a lot of things. Like, okay, we ask questions like, do you want to come and join the protests like that we're doing? So like, even if it's an infiltrator, he's going to say, yes, I want to join, right? Like, why would he say no, right? So we added some things like, okay, share your social media profile with us, because almost every activist has one.
Can you show us the form?
Sure.
Let me see if I can make. I don't know if you can share screen.
I'm on the mobile right now. Like I don't have my laptop with me.
Okay, no big deal. Yeah, maybe we can show an example later on, and I share it with everybody.
Sure, I'll do that. So we could put together a form, but it's not too intense. Like if you make it too much, then people be like, oh, you're being too invasive, and I don't want to give you so much data. And then if you keep it too little, then group members kind of get concerned that, oh, like I don't feel comfortable in this space talking in this group or whatever. So I kind of put it in the middle, and some key questions you could try asking is like, what's your social media handle, so people can actually go and see if you've been sharing stuff online or not, along with asking some things like probably try to pander to them and ask them, what do you think is a solution to our problems, any suggestions from your side, so they feel good that way, like you're interested in their opinions. These are just two things I use along with the usual stuff, and that way. And then I mean, like, since there's a lot of work and I can't handle it, then I kind of distributed it to a couple people who had been working with me, like, okay, you guys will handle sending the forms to the people, you guys will handle like adding them to the groups and stuff. So I'm pretty good right now in the sense of like we've kind of set up a structure where I have people working kind of in teams under me, where they have different responsibilities and things like that. So although my intention, like early on when we had our cell, like I think I told you last year, Derek, that we did have a tight cell, but that's kind of blown up into say just 150 to 200 people from my own city who are part of our Mumbai group, and who want to come and like do work on the ground, share flyers, come to the protests and stuff. So we've grown quite a bit out here, and everyone's on the same page more or less in terms of understanding the information. So we didn't start out in terms of 8-8, but I'd like to share some experience now, like coming to the wisdom of why we need to distribute so that the network can grow, which is something that like I see is of value in what you're saying. But I'm kind of coming around to it now from the other side. Like we've had a main group which has grown, and now we are planning to like split it apart into small cells of people.
Johan, can I just make one request? Just if you don't
Sure.
mind, a couple people asked if you would just slow down a little bit, just so they could make. They're taking notes, I guess. And for those who are
Sure.
listening, I'm posting notes in the chat as well. But you're about to say some really important stuff, so I just want to make sure everybody can hear.
Sure, I'll do that. So I don't know. I think people must have followed till the form bit. So the main thing we did in the form is put a question out for the social media handle of the person, so you can be sure that they have some kind of history behind them. And to make them feel good, you can ask them, what do you think we should do, or what do you think the solution is to kind of mitigate the issues we're facing. So those are just the two things I added on the form, along with like the usual stuff people ask for, like the phone number and the email address and stuff like that. And after that, where I was going is, through this entire process, through having like teams under me and everything, I've kind of delegated the responsibilities, because if you start out and then people kind of grow, you might get overwhelmed if you're kind of handling everything. Like for me early on, it was like I'm handling the main group, where now we have nearly like 1,500, 2,000 main, or like only Indians. There are no like sort of people from abroad who are awake and who are part of our group. There are very few people over there, but it's mainly Indians. So that's a community we have, which is like growing faster and faster day by day as people are starting to get more informed over what's going on. Then I'm handling all the city groups we have in our country. Like in different cities, we've put together an approach where watching the content, people fill the forms, and then whichever city they're from, we connect them with the local activists in the area and stuff. So it's grown pretty much. And then if you kind of started on your own, you're obviously going to get overwhelmed, because it's going to be a lot of work for you to do. So as soon as you feel like there's some momentum going and you have a couple of groups under you, many people, just allocate responsibility to people who you trust, and then let them handle it that way. That's something I've learned, and it's helped me to do my work, as well as the more kind of logistical work also goes on, but you're not really doing that.
So you kind of
So
started, Johan, from like the bigger level, kind of going down, because like you said, you
yeah,
basically have Anarchy for Freedom India. You're reaching people from all over India are contacting you. You've got a vetting form that gives you information about how serious they are, what they're interested in, and where they're at. And then from there, you can pass them on to the person who's in New Delhi, or who's in Mumbai, or different cities, and then help kind of facilitate. So you're kind of playing more of an organizational role, as well as the work that you're doing on your own.
yeah. I mean, it's worked out pretty well, actually. Like I just used some of my ideas intuitively, along with like everything I've read from you and other libertarians and anarchists, in terms of like how we can get people going, and like organized. And it's a kind of need of people right now, which is why you're seeing freedom cells growing exponentially as well, right? Because people want some kind of security. Whenever people usually fill the form, they're like, oh fuck, I thought I was the only person in my area, and I'm so glad I found you. I came across your work, right? So that's very encouraging to see that. It's like people just want to connect with other people and make sure that there are people like them who they have a safe space to kind of go to or work with, because everyone's at least people who are starting to understand like what's really going on, they're starting to get really concerned, to say the least, about like what we should do. So I started out the other way. As I said, it kind of blew up, and we have ton of people, and like the forms are getting filled at such a rate, because what I did is I kind of brought the idea to other content creators, and then they started sharing the same form. So I have like people with say 50,000 subscribers, 100,000 subscribers, all sharing the same form. People, it's mainly, and they have all Hindi channels, right? So it's all mainly Indians who are watching that. And then they're the same kind of channels that spread the kind of work I'm doing, but in a more news-based kind of fashion. So even they're drawing a lot of people in. So we're really having a hard time right now just managing the forms and adding people, because there's so many people to bring together. But I'm happy it's all happening, and we'll have it sorted out sooner or later, like everyone on the same page. So
It's a
now
great
that
problem to
Mumbai,
have, man.
I know, right? So now that our Mumbai group kind of blew up, Another reason I'd like to mention that it's kind of blowing up and gaining momentum is because of the protests that we held. So we held some of the first protests out here. I mean, like India has no culture or no kind of backdrop of protesting or standing up against any of these so-called like Western conspiracy kind of issues, right? The culture is very alien out here. Even in the media, when people are kind of say reporting on what I'm doing or what a couple of people out here are doing, it was like, oh, they're bringing the like Western libertarian movement out here, or they're all inspired by Trump and stuff like that. So it's a very alien kind of thing out here. But we took that first step, and there are a couple of good doctors in our country as well who like are really willing to put themselves on the line and come out and do their bit to save the country and the people. So we have like it's not like just me that's doing this work. We have people in different cities, and even in South India we have people speaking an entirely different language I don't understand at all, who are informing people about the new world order and the banking system and all of that. So in terms of awareness, that whole thing is picking up out here. We just need to organize and come together, which is what like that's the space I'm trying to fill in and give other people the ideas that if we don't organize these people and come together, then all the information isn't going to do anything, right? So as far as I'll talk about my Mumbai group a little bit now. So we started meeting like say I don't know 4 or 5 months back, right? And okay, by the way, yeah, I have Bhavya with me as well, and she'll be sharing some of her thoughts once I'm done. Like because she's part of our group and she has the same kind of she has something more to add than I have to add. But we started meeting like 4 or 5 months ago out here, and started small. Like our first meetings were like probably 4 or 5 people or so, and then once it started picking up, we were like, everyone just coming to the group and brainstorming, like, what can we do to reach more people? And, oh, the situation is so bleak. People are never going to get it. All this stuff is going to happen in a year. But, like, here we are, just 5 or 10 of us sitting. So there's a lot of, I don't know, kind of doom and gloom kind of sentiment that, oh, we're too little and we're too late. But then still, we chose to work and we chose to keep those concerns aside because that's not going to do anything. And we were like, okay, what can we do? So we came up with some ideas, out of which the flyer idea was, I think, the most successful. So first, the idea just came that okay, we should start to print flyers and at least distribute them. And people like in the group intuitively as well, like two people are just like made a crude kind of flyer where they just basically like wrote a bunch of terms down, like no cashless society, no to back mandatory vaccine and stuff. But just building on that, we built a very like sophisticated kind of flyer in different languages, right? So we built the first one in English, and the thing I used is I used the wisdom of the group. So whoever was most active, and I kind of had trust in the capabilities on the group, I just got like 40, 50 of them together. I put a bunch of my ideas forward, like just what came to me in terms of what should be going on the flyer. And then we just had like 40, 50 of them brainstorm and, okay, we need to edit this, or this needs to go there, that needs to go there. And then I just took all the suggestions that came from that and kind of concised that into one main flyer out of based on what everyone was saying. So it's like they don't have the say the power to change it, but then it's like if they bring it to one person and then I use all the suggestions and make sure that I'm trying to incorporate as much as I find like reasonable and sound, and use everyone's kind of effort onto that flyer, because that's what motivates other people to spread it as well, right? Like if you bring everyone's energies in and they are like contributing something as well, they feel like sharing it most because they were involved in kind of the creation of that. So we did that and we landed up with a really good flyer. And what we did with the flyer is we used a couple of questions to entice people at first. So we didn't just start out with the information, but we started out with like a bunch of grappling questions that would get any normal person, right? Like, okay, uh, is COVID-19 deadlier than heart disease, cancer, and things like that? Or are more people dying from unemployment and hunger than are from COVID-19? So really like emotionally driven, charged questions that would attract people. And we kind of saw that in the response as well, because initially we were going out and like distributing. So once we got them printed, we were like, okay, let's just go one to one and like let's go to people in the streets and do that. And we got a like good couple of videos as well, which I haven't yet like finished. But it was a really good response, because out here we were thinking that most people would be dismissive, but then from my experience, like 9 out of 10 people were receptive. And I tell you guys one more thing as well, that like how well informed you are makes a big difference in like if you're trying to convince people on the street, because like I just saw it in my own approach. Like if you just start talking to people and you sound credible and you have this air of like he knows what he's talking about kind of thing, people do take you seriously, and they won't just leave or laugh or mock you like that. Like a lot of people have anxiety, right, when they approach new people. So the more confident you are and the more you know your shit, the easier it is to convince people, and you can actually even kind of manipulate them also, which you shouldn't do. Just putting it out there through my experience. So I had a very good like kind of optimistic experience, so to say, with sharing the flyers, because the response was really good. And as soon as people would read like the first half of the flyer, they just read through the question. They're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I thought about this, and what do you think?" Or they just say something from their own mouth, which I was going to tell them anyway a lot of the times, right? Just by reading the question, because it's so leading. So, but then that kind of strategy you have to spend a lot of time on. And at that point in time, when we were printing the flyers, we had like say 50 or 60 people in our group. So we didn't have many people. And then you know how it is, like if there are 50, 60 people in the group, then 25 of them are like active. And then, you really have to be after the other ones. Why are you going to come for today's meeting? Why are you going to distribute this? Are you going to do this? So there is a, I mean, like whenever you build a group like this, there's always going to be like a bunch of people who are busy, who you might have to follow up after. But it's valuable to kind of have the people who are interested as well. Like, just don't use a heavy-handed approach and be like, okay, you're not doing any work, so I'm gonna kick you out. Of course, he's not. If he's not doing anything, you should kick him out. But then just be a little more, say, tolerating to people and give them chances instead of just moving out. Something I'm sharing from my own experience. So after doing that, we were like, okay, we need to like really make sure this message reaches out to more people, and we have less time. So all of us just can't go and use our energies in distributing flyers. And if something happens to any of us, then just so we kind of came up with this thing. We pooled in funds from the group overall, and we were like, okay, let's just use whatever say power we have in terms of financial capabilities, and we printed around say 50 or 60,000 flyers in a group after all of us contributing. There were like one, two generous people who were not even from the group, but I just told them that, we're trying to do this to spread awareness, and they were more than happy to contribute their financial resources. So we got those flyers printed, and then what we did is basically like all spread across our city. We had different people living in different areas, right? So we would just say, like, if someone's living in this one suburban space or something like that, we just send them, say, 2,000, 2,500 flyers, and then they would like pay a small cost, and they would go to the newspaper person and just basically like slip it into each newspaper, and then it would spread in those local areas. So we didn't have like overlapping, say, flyers going out to the same person again and again. We made sure that whoever was distributed in the city would basically do it and do it in their own area. So they kind of increased the awareness around where they were living as well, which helped a lot in the message in a distributed way getting across the city. And I'll tell you, a lot of our activism has had some results on the ground also in terms of changing people's outlook. Because I don't know if you guys have followed my video on Derrick's channel, which got censored. People from our cell as well, like people from our Mumbai cell, we all decided like to make a video burning our masks. So this was before we started the flyer campaign, and we were all supposed to do it together. But then since the city is big and a couple of people live kind of spread out in different places, couple of people did it before us, and their video landed up like really blowing up online and stuff. And it was just and we they kind of slipped in the message of mandatory vaccines as well. Like they did the whole video about masks, but then they were like, today it's about a mandatory mask, tomorrow it's going to be about a mandatory vaccine on the same principle. So they really got that in also. And they were just talking about how masks are a symbol of slavery and stuff. So we got a big conversation going as with that for sure. And then, on the aftermath of that, a couple of media people approached us, and they all these headlines like, oh, the anti-maskers have come to India, and God save India and stuff like that. So we did get a good conversation like going in the city at least, and the country by and large, at least North India, because a lot of news channels in the like mainstream news channels were running that video in their prime time news and stuff. So that did have a big impact. And then ever since then, we've had some kind of conversation going that, okay, at least there are these people over here who are not just going to accept whatever's coming, right? Although they might be few and the numbers might not be too many, at least at this phase, but these people are out there and they're pretty vocal. That's the message that went out. So ever since then, it's just been like growing exponentially. This is what led us to do our first protest as well, because we thought that we had a bunch of people with us and who could kind of go forward and take that step and actually do it. So we landed up having protests in say different parts of the country, and everywhere we had like a decent turnout. In Mumbai, it was by far like, the most well organized and the largest number of people turning up. But it was the same way in Delhi and other places, and we're planning a bigger one on the 1st of November as well, and we're kind of working towards. We have some strategies that I have used to kind of help us get more numbers towards those as well, which I'd like to share. But I'd like to just come back. I've just given everyone an overall sort of thing as to what has happened till now. But now I'll come to more in terms of like what's going on within my Mumbai group and some say nasty experiences we had in the group from which we had to learn from and implement certain things. So just I mean recently we had a kind of say uh, an incident on the group that really was about to kick people off. Like early also we had an incident which was like really okay, if this thing happens then our group is going to split apart. But then we managed to turn it around. So I just say one thing, okay, if people in your group, like if you've taken part in something and then at the last moment like you or other people step out of that and then you just leave that person who took part in that hanging, they are not going to like it and it's going to affect your group's unity. So if you want to keep your group's unity and you want to make sure that people are on the same page, just make sure you're standing for each other. Like whenever something happens or whenever shit hits the fan or whenever anything unpleasant happens, just make sure you don't leave the person alone and make sure that you're there, because this is what's been so important in our group building and growing, is that we've met each other, we've come to know each other, we've built a sense of camaraderie, of trust, of just like basically just like good people standing for each other, right? And like helping each other out as sort of situations get bad. So this is what has helped us, our group, stick together this forward. And even the last time an incident like this happened, we had to kind of like there has to be one or two people who mediate in the group, who make sure that you know things aren't splitting off, or at least come to some kind of agreements when people have say disputes or when people are upset about whatever's happened on the group or how group members have behaved. That needs to be resolved and it needs to be taken care of quick. But because if it doesn't, then there's this whole atmosphere of say confusion and people just don't know what's going on and stuff. So we had an incident like that which was dealt with successfully, and then we had another incident recently with respect to girls feeling uncomfortable, like, so if you ever land up in a situation of like that, doesn't even have to be that the guy is at fault necessarily or the girl is at fault. You just don't know which side to take, right? Because everyone's just making the allegations from either side. So it was important for us to for me to set up guidelines with respect to like, okay, this is how we will approach things in the group and this is how things are going to work from now. So like just some examples, like just if there are women in the group, then just don't approach them randomly to socialize and stuff. Like, of course, you can do that if the woman is comfortable and she's consenting and sort of reciprocating, right? But if it's a no, then it's a no. Like, if the someone doesn't want to talk to you, then you can't just keep going on and on with that. So, just as some basic guidelines that help things out. So, I think this is something that if people have a group and they want to implement, they can do that before something happens, and then you have to go back and implement guidelines. So just having a basic rule set in your group, just basic rules, don't make it too complicated or something, but just like what you want the discussions to be based focus on. So if people are going off topic or talking about things or doing personal attacks at people in the group, then they'll be kicked out. If anyone has an issue in the group, then they should make sure that they basically come and reach out to like a bunch of people and not just openly broadcast that issue on the group, because that kind of disturbs the say the peace or the unity of the group if someone just goes forward and starts making some allegation on the group. So they're supposed to go and reach out to like say a bunch of core people, and you tell them who those core people are, so they reach out to them so that at least it can be dealt with internally and everyone on the group doesn't have to know about that. And then, so I mean, these are just the things that helped us sort of, we came across some experiences, and because of that, we had to implement something. So I'm just sharing my experience that you don't have to wait for that to happen. You can just have these rules going in from within, and then just make sure you have like at least 2, 3 responsible admins who like enforce them correctly. Yeah, and then just in terms of splitting up, in terms of having smaller freedom cells, like now that our Mumbai group has say grown a lot, now we are planning to basically like break up in teams of 8 and split across local areas. So within Mumbai, if someone's living in like a certain space, then you know we have like a small group of 8 to 10 people, and then we give
How
these
many are
teams.
in your Mumbai group, Johan?
We have 180 as of now.
In Mumbai itself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow, awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, we're working to grow that as much as we can. As yeah, John. I mean, it sounds like a surprising number, but like I said, there's a large percentage of people are active, and then some people are like you have to be after them and make sure they come. So we have like one team that's just set for following up with people. So that we have like a small team that's just there to make sure that okay, if there's a protest happening in a week, then we need to make like call everyone from the group and make sure that they're on the same page, or they're going to come, or if we're having a meeting, then we need to know if people are going to come or not, and we need to give them reminders like okay, this is the only group on Telegram you need to be active on. It's okay if you don't talk in the discussion group and stuff, but since this is your team from like your city where you're living in, and the group is going to be doing a lot for you as you're going to be doing a lot for the group and the overall message, then you need to make sure that you're active over there. So we just, I mean, just sharing some stuff, what I've learned, just make sure that you're delegating responsibilities. Don't have like one main guy who's in charge because he's going to get overwhelmed. So make sure that, of course, that there's sort of, one person who is having an overview of everything, but then give responsibilities to people within the group so that, and then of course to scale up the group in a decentralized fashion, like John was saying, you need to have these small teams that kind of have the responsibilities and are working in their own local area to spread awareness. So some of the things that we've been trying to do is, if someone can get us a speaking engagement of someone, say in a local area, can mobilize or get people interested to listen to a point of view, then they can have a session arranged for one of us or me, or like 1, 2 people in the group who can speak well. We just go there and say give them a talk or a presentation so that we can kind of wake up them as well. So we've been trying to tap into local activists, into people who have a reach into like say slum areas or people who are not so well to do financially and those kind of things. So we can tap into all different kinds of networks. People in our group have really been brainstorming. So we have people from like, as the group starts to expand, you get people from all niches, like people who are like good at, say, one person's really good at marketing and one person has an experience in certain kind of things. So we've been trying to just do everything we can to reach all different kinds of people. Like now some of the ideas we have going forward is trying to make teams and approaching local police stations to convey to them like what we think is going on, because I've had some experience with this. Like some of the people in the group have been able to arrange meetings of mine with local police officers, with 1 or 2 politicians. So I go and like, sort of speak to them and do as much. I do my bit basically, try to share with them. And all the experiences I've had have been positive. The experiences from the police officers have been, oh, okay, they kind of agree with some of the things I have to say, but then it all comes down to, okay, I have a family, we can't not follow orders. There's this kind of culture, at least in the West, that you're supposed to disobey bad laws. I don't know what happened here. Even Gandhi said the same thing. Like if there's a bad law, you're supposed to disobey it. But then most police officers act like they don't have a choice. Like either it's their job that will go, or they have to follow all the orders that come from the state. They can't like there's no other option for them. There's no option of not like disobeying the law and then leaving the force that way. So we're just trying to get it to them and explain the urgency of the situation. So this is something we're planning to do in a more organized way going forward. It's just an idea for now, but I'm planning to implement that we start going to our local say police departments and trying to get meetings with their heads and trying to convince them, or at least share our point of view, share our flyer with them, tell them this is what we think is really going on, please research into it and that kind of stuff. Because these are the people who are going, like, if you at least convince them or have some kind of rapport with them, it's going to help you, like, say they're going to be more easy on you if they're your local area police and they know you and you've come to protest for the same reason. They're going to be much more easier on you than if they think that you're some kind of radical, who's just come there to disturb the public peace or whatever. And this is what we experience in the protests as well, because I have like one or two senior people in our group who are like mentors of mine, who've been really working in the activism space in our city for a really long time. And since he knows a lot of the police people and he knows a lot of people within the system in general. So this is what helped us to, like, stay around for a little more time. And even at the protests as well, like we had two of our group members say go and talk to the police in a nice way and tell them we're doing this for you, kind of being empathetic towards them, not being hostile and stuff. Because I mean, I've tried being hostile to them and it doesn't work. Like there's no point in doing that or trying. They basically take it on the ego. So you don't want to like be confrontative or hostile with them. You just, I mean, this is what's worked for us. I'm sure people have different thoughts on this, but we've always been nice to the police, and that's kind of worked in our favor as well. Because I don't see any, you can't like argue with them or try to convince. It just doesn't work over here at least. So yeah, I
Johan,
mean, yeah.
let me interrupt real quick. First of all, everybody who's on the call, thank you all for being here. I know we lost a few people. If you did join late, guys, please go ahead and add the city you are in to your name. Go to the participants, click rename, and add your city. As you guys can see, we have people all over from Mexico and the U.S., and Johan is in Mumbai. I'm going to give you guys like another 10 minutes or so, and then definitely want to make sure we have time to do these breakout groups. You've been dropping so much knowledge, but I know we want to hear from your partner as well and hear what she has to say. So yeah, about 10 more minutes or so, and then we'll jump into breakout groups.
Sure, I'll hand it over.
Mm-hmm. Hi, it's so nice to be here. And is gone, I think.
No, you can talk. People are listening.
Okay. So yeah, I'm Bhavya, and I've been around with Johan in this since the last 5 years. I've kind of been having my own ups and downs. In fact, when I met Derrick, that time I was in a very bad low period where I decided I'm going to quit all of this and I'm just going to back up Johan from the corner and not be involved into it much. And I remember like he had written a couple of words on my book, due to which it kind of motivated me, and the entire Anarchapulco conference really motivated me, due to which I decided to get back on track. And here I am again. We're kind of on our feet, getting people together, because what I would like to say here is that the things that are coming in our country now, the awareness about, be it vaccines, be it geoengineering, or be it the big pharma and stuff like that, it was not very much known in our country, because all this while the political parties that were here before the current one, they were somewhat laying down for foundations for the cashless societies and the surveillance state. So this was something not the people were not very much aware about it. So when we started this in the very beginning, it was very difficult for us, and especially for Johan, because I think somewhere he's one of the very few people who is able to combine the everything together. I mean, there are some people who know about the radiation part of it. There are some people who know about the vaccination agenda part of it. There are some people who understand the corrupt politics, the corrupt media, they know different segments of it. But I think Johan has done a very good job in culminating it all and kind of bringing it together, so that people understand that this is not just about one or two incidents that we are facing, but in totality bringing anarchy as a concept to this country. Because even now we are facing a lot of mistrust in our country about the current political parties, and we do see often people asking us that if not this political party, then what is the next best option. So people are still kind of finding that somewhere the authority figure where they can, someone whom they can rely on, and someone who can come and restructure and help them to reframe the entire economy again. But fortunately now we are able to see that people are realizing that this is not going to help just by finding some trust or finding hope in some political party, but it's about a way of life. It is about free will. It is about the concept of anarchy that we've been able to bring in this country. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, and that's all I wanted to mainly add, that yeah. So this is the main thing that because even in our country, the main issue that we were facing all this while was mainly about the Hinduism and the Muslim, parties. And even today we are finding that people are still more excited about getting involved in this kind of division and not understanding the bigger global agenda. So that was the issues that we were facing in the start, but fortunately people have quite gotten out of it, and they have been able to see the bigger picture, and they're able to connect the dots. But we are going it, we are still there are days when we feel that the numbers are still not enough, because we're a country of about 1 billion people. So as compared to that, there are days where we feel that we are very few. But as compared to what we were last year, where we were completely clueless about where we are headed, at least now people are excited. I do see that there are almost like every day there are like like so many people contacting Johan and contacting the other activists who are working on these subjects. It's like so exciting that every day there are more people who are excited to be a part of this group, and not only just be social warriors on the on the behind the screen, but they're interested to come on ground and do their bit. So that is something that the last protest that we had was the very first of its kind. We never had a protest that spoke about this the issue in totality. We never had a protest like that. So the connection and the emotion, the vibe that we had in that protest was so interesting. And after the protest ended, we all had sense of connection amongst all of us, that I remember the time, like the Johan and other activists were just talking to the media, and there the police officers were standing, not saying a word. They were just standing there, because they also didn't know what these idiots are doing. This was the first time, and they didn't know that there are going to be people who are going to come up and protest against masks and protest against 5G, because this was never known to them that there will be people who will talk against this too, especially in a country like India. So that sense of connectivity, when we meet people in the when we are having events at a physical level, and when we are interacting with them, that is what has gotten the entire group together, and that is what has have people get even their more friends and family involved into this. Of course, we do see a lot of backlash that a lot of members have to face by their families, because even in this you may call it culture, but here nobody is interested in giving time to protest, and they would call it like waste of time, or they would say that uh, fighting for it is not going to take us anywhere. But I remember somebody mentioning it in today's video some time back, that you have two options, like you either do something about it, or you're just going to sit at home and do nothing about it. So which side do you want to go for? So these ideas are now getting imbibed in our members, and that is why especially being in this group since the very foundation of it, when we were just 2-3 of us, and now seeing like 2,000-3,000 people into it. So yes, it's very nice, and I'm very happy to see that there are more people getting added every day, and I'm looking forward to have maybe a movement like how we saw in London and other countries, where there were so many people coming on streets and understanding this. And today also, every cab driver, every watchman, every housemaid, or like people even who are financially not well off, every part of this country, whoever we've spoken to, they understand what's happening. And like randomly people are talking about the new world order. So these concepts are seeping into them. These points have started, people have started questioning. So that is the best part, that the topics that were never discussed are being discussed now. So we are just trying to do our best into getting everybody under one roof, and so that we are having bigger movements and bigger gatherings where it's impacting the entire country at a larger scale. So I'm very excited. And not only for me, of course, it's always been a war at a spiritual level, because at the end of the day, that's what we are fighting, and that's where we are like we are trying to gain the control back at a psychological level, and we're seeing it's more of a psychological war. So happily, a lot of people are realizing this too, that we are being played, and the battlefield is here, and we are just manifesting it. Whatever we are doing it here, we are manifesting it outside. So it's very exciting that people are understanding these points, and I'm really looking forward to be a part of this and have more people be on board. So thank you so much.
Guys, you are so awesome. Both of you are amazing, and we all appreciate it. I know that, Johan, I hope you know that how much I value both of your work. And I know John is over here telling just how awesome you guys are. But I really hope everybody who's on this call can take inspiration from the tips that Johan gave. And I will say this. After the call, we will be sharing the recording, but I'm also going to download the chat. And there was a bunch of different questions and tips that Johan gave, and I'm going to put those in a document, and we can share those out throughout the Freedom Cell Network and get that information out. So if you missed some stuff, don't worry about it. But yeah, I mean, if you're listening from Austin or Minnesota or wherever you are in the U.S. or wherever you are in Mexico, please take heart and know that we have brothers and sisters all around the world. And like I said earlier, Dave didn't get to join us today from Australia, but he's doing equally inspiring work. And so just thank you guys so much for sharing with everybody. I really, really just value it so much. Anything else you want to say, Johan, before we switch to breakout groups, either of you?
Yeah, Derek, just final thoughts quickly. Again, thanks a lot for having me on, letting me do this. It helps to share my ideas, and I'm glad that people are appreciating the tips and everything that I shared. Just one last thing. We use our group a lot to target people online. So we found some players out here, and local players who are kind of implementing the agenda, since I figured out through my research. So we usually like have a group, and we just say like, okay, go and like comment bomb this post or whatever, and then just people just go and attack that. So just tactics like this, and as I said, we are planning to go approach police people, like, and we're planning different approaches like that to target people within the system. Because what I see is people on the ground are trying to get it, as Bhavya also alluded to earlier. Whenever we spoke into cab drivers or something, they pretty much know this is a joke and like, this fucked up. Not they might not know everything, but then they know that they're being scammed because their livelihoods are being affected. But we want to make a better effort to reach the people within the institutions, at least those who are genuinely clueless and who don't have an idea. Of course, many of them are bought and paid for. But at least the people who we have some hope for, if we start to see some infighting and some division over there, it'll really help our cause like going forward. So yeah, these are some of the ideas that we're working on and we want to implement in the near future going forward. Thanks, Derek.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. I hope everybody will hang out. We're down to 34 from about 50 people. So this is going to be the first time that I'm trying this with Freedom Cells. Like I said, I've done it with other groups. So we've got 34 people. Let me see. Assigned 33 participants. How many rooms? Somebody do the math. How many rooms should we have? If we had 8 members, we would have 4 groups, right? Yeah, let's see, 4 to 5 participants. Let's do 4 groups. And so it's going to have about 8 to 9 people in each group. Actually, let's go with 5. So it'll be 6 to 7 people in each group. And this is just going to happen automatically. So you're not necessarily going to be a Freedom Cell of people who are based in the same locale. But let's pretend like we are all living in the same area. And I thought of a question earlier. I don't know if John has a suggestion, but this is what I came up with earlier. How about when we go into these breakout rooms, pretend that these are your inner cadre, your main Freedom Cell. And let's pick one exercise. Now, this is something that's coming up in a lot of people's mind. Let's imagine that we just got a phone call from one of our Freedom Cells members, and that cops are at their door for some reason, whatever it may be. Hey, somebody's here to force vaccinate me. Somebody's here to take my kids. You imagine yourself, but there's an authority at the door, and a Freedom Cell member has just sent out a call for help. What is our response? How do we handle that? That's going to be our assignment. So we have 31 people. It'll be 6 people in 5 rooms. Let me break it down. Let's go 7 to 8 in 4 rooms if everybody's down. And this will be for let's do 10 minutes, just discussion. And yeah, be willing, be open. And let's do it. Okay, we got one more person coming in right now. We'll add it up. And Andrew and Max are just joining, so somebody explain to them what the heck we're about to do. But okay, so we got 4 participants. There we go, perfect. 32 people, 4 rooms. So again, the question is, for those who just joined, we're about to split off into breakout rooms. Pretend like this is your Freedom Cell. You just got a phone call from one of your cell members. They are in trouble. They need support. They need help. How do you respond to that? That's the exercise. See you in 10 minutes. All right, let's do it. It should send you a request to join a room. Just go ahead and click join. There you go. So yeah, if you see the join thing pop up, just go ahead and click join and join into these different breakout rooms. It looks like mostly everybody has joined. Topaz, Martin haven't joined. You guys see the button to join? There you go. Cool. All right. I'm going to check them all out. Hey, Victoria, you joined a little bit late, but if you're interested, everybody is in breakout rooms right now, separate rooms. We have 4 of them, and we're discussing how would a Freedom Cell handle if one of our members sent out a message and said, "Guys, I'm in trouble. There's, cops at my door, or, I need help. I need some help here immediately." How would you handle that situation? So if you're interested, I can add you to one of those rooms. We're going to do that for another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll be coming back to the main room. I don't know if you can, let me see if I can unmute you for a second. Would you like to go to breakout rooms?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, cool. Let me add you. Assign to, how about number 4? Well, that was cool. All right, we're gonna wait for everybody. Everybody's slowly coming back into the room. Sweet. It actually worked. Oh, we even got some people joining late. All right, welcome back, everybody. We got all the rooms are about to close in the next 10 seconds. B, you just joined. If you don't mind clicking on your name and renaming yourself and adding the city you are in. We're just coming back from doing breakout groups, so everybody is about to be in here. We have 30-something people in here. Slowly filing back in. There we go. That was pretty freaking awesome, if I can say so myself. That is really cool to see, to see all the action happening, everything. And yeah, I was able to pop into the different rooms and hear everybody talking, and so that was pretty cool. And I think we're back down. We got 31 people or so. That was really awesome, John. I heard you. I'll let you share. But the first thing I want to just add is I was able to pop into each room and kind of hear the conversations and throw out some advice or tips. And it's just freaking awesome to see this, guys. This is what we've been working on. Is even though we're not all local on this call, we can still get together and share tips and ideas. And it was really great. So the last thing I asked from each group was to sort of think of a representative, one person from each. We had 4 groups. So if everybody did pick one person to share that can just share a couple of tips, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, nothing too long, as we're starting to wrap up here. Actually, I think the call was scheduled till 2 o'clock, so we're going to wrap up a few minutes. But if we can get one representative from each group to share their thoughts, I'm going to start with, I don't have the groups in front of me now, but just type in the chat and then I'll unmute you if you are one of the representatives that was chosen from the various groups. We had 4 groups. Max, so you want me to unmute you? Are you one of the reps for your group? Okay, cool. Let me get Max on here. We'll start with Max and then everybody else who was part of the group. All right, Max, a couple minutes to just share what your group found, discussed.
Okay, thanks. So we try to determine what are the options. We try to determine what kind of what kind of things are we realistically capable of doing, capable of responding. So what we came up with is better to escape if we're talking about one person. Staying in the house would be dangerous because these days the authorities can basically see on your hardware, on the phone, maybe your computer, they can tap in there and check out are you home? So if you're hiding and you are still in your home, they're going to find you one way or another. They'll just gonna keep on looking. So the best way would be to escape, even though you risk escalation with that. You would need to first inform others that you are trying to escape. So you need to have different communication rather than not just your regular phone. Maybe another phone that you are using only in emergencies. Maybe a radio that you will use. That communication set might even be left behind, but then you need to know where to go. So there's going to be a meetup area that you have been talking about before that. All of the people know how to get there on foot without a vehicle. Once that person gets there, maybe there is another set of communications there. So again, maybe another radio over there hidden somewhere. Think of geocaching, stuff like that. Maybe there's another phone. That person can then let everybody know, like, hey, I'm at least I don't have a tail. But I still, I'm here and they're looking for me. That might to get that has to be a limited team as well. You don't want everybody, so you have to like try to keep the others safe as well. So there's a lot of ifs. There's definitely a lot of things that can go wrong. But considering everything, we think that escaping is is the first thing that person can do, rather than making sure where to go, and that then they can really talk about the next.
Max, I just muted you. Sorry about that, brother. You were starting to cut up a little bit on my end. I don't know if it was for everybody else, but I'm gonna go ahead just because we're on limited time. I'm gonna real quick recap. Max was saying escape to a predetermined location, have an extra set of communications at that location. He also, where did it go? And meeting up there, and then having a limited group to be at that meeting location. Those are all, I think, good tips. I know that each group's going to have a different goal, so that's what we're going to go with is letting each group share. Okay, Chaz is going to be the next representative from the next group. Sorry to cut you off, Max. Just want to make sure everybody gets a chance. Chaz, I'm going to unmute you now if you can share what your group found.
Okay, I just want to put out there real fast, Johan and I had many other members contributing, and at least at the very minimum, Johan or Martin would be able to offer some supplemental stuff, but just to make sure I can get the gist of it. The stuff we were kind of coming up with was literally making phone calls, and then having some people were saying having like 2 specific people that if something's going down and it's like code pineapple or whatever, and I'm in danger, immediately I'm calling my 2 closest people that I know are there, and then maybe having 1/3 backup person, because if 2 people don't answer, you have that 3rd person to try and get the message out as quick as you can, and then from there trying to spread that information as best we can. And then we had the idea to just literally kind of show up to that person's place. And I understand some, like in the States, the guards are armed, and so if there's a forced vaccination, they might take us all in, and we really don't know. But I feel like if we show up and have a group of 10 or a group of 20 or a group of 30, there's probably going to be more things for them to try and deal with. If there's only one squad car there, it might be hard for them to try and lock every single person up. And then we're saying, no, this isn't going to happen. And then we have to regroup from there immediately, because if they're compromised in that way, and then the state is putting the boot on the neck, then we didn't get this far ahead, but our instincts were to call 2 people specifically, and then maybe that's a working idea, and then kind of showing up to that person's house as a means of nonviolent force and saying, hey, we don't agree with this, we're not approving of this, you don't have consent over our lives and our bodies in this specific way, and we're asking you to leave. And then me kind of speculating here, that next solution would be, where the hell are we going to go? What the hell are we going to do? So maybe having like a strategic plan in place where if that does happen, code pineapple or whatever, we can kind of take the steps necessary to go somewhere else.
Awesome, perfect. Code pineapple. Everybody remember it. All right, we're going to go to Kurt next. Thank you, Chaz. Appreciate that. I appreciate everybody really thinking this out. All right, Chaz, or Kurt, you're up.
Thanks, Derrick. So my group approached it a little bit differently. We didn't actually try to solve the scenario or role play it the way the first 2 groups did, and I guess I don't know what the 4th group did, but one of the initial things that we thought was, this is a really, really hard scenario for the cell to deal with, right? This is like advanced level stuff from a freedom cell perspective. And so we kind of went to, well, okay, so we could try and talk through the scenario, but in reality, what our freedom cell, the 8 of us, are really going to do in real life is we're going to sit down and we're going to plan for that situation. We don't have a plan for that right now. So that's essentially what we spent our time talking about was, okay, so what planning would we do ahead of time so that when the call came through, it just instantly know what to do. We'd all have it figured out. And so we talked about a lot of different things. The question of expertise came up, having people within the cell that have expertise in different areas, whether it be legal, knowing how to deal with the cops, or nonviolent communication, or de-escalation tactics, or self-defense, and all these different things. So we thought, okay, so we want to have a broad skill set within the group so that we can look at different problems like this from different angles. We also talked about other kind of preparation measures. What sort of supplies should we have on hand? How can we prepare to have places to go, or to bug out to if necessary? We talked a lot about that. And then we did talk through some actual specific strategies for how to handle, like, okay, that situation. One of our members is in a crisis. Like, what do we do? Like the first 2 groups talked about a little bit. Would some members actually go and try and provides physical support, showing up in person. How would we handle that? Talked about, doing things like making a human chain. Didn't really talk about showing up with force, but we talked about showing up with cameras, and that maybe that could help. And just, maybe the person just actually needs help, like calling somebody on the phone and just helping to talk them through or talk them down, de-escalate their own psychological situation. So those are the kind of things that we discussed.
That's great stuff, Kurt. Really appreciate that. All right, we're going to bring on Austin for the last of our groups. Austin, go ahead.
Yeah, so we discussed a lot of the things that the other groups discussed. I and some other members also want to discuss other topics, but we definitely discussed, showing up in person, possibly, having a physical presence to help deal with the situation. And, also having a bug out spot, a location that you have planned, a meetup. The Freedom Cell I'm working with right now, we're looking at bug out spots anywhere and everywhere. So whether it's local or farther away, like intentional communities, I guess that's the last resort. We didn't do a lot of planning about, what exactly would happen. But there's so many different options. Once the police are called, it's kind of, that's a bad that's kind of the end game. You want to be prepared before that. So hopefully cells are preparing in their own ways to prepare for that. I hadn't really thought a lot about this topic. I did want to talk to we wanted to discuss other things as well. We talked about some of the current events going on with this situation, a lot of passionate members in our group. And I was trying to, see what other people were doing with cells. My cell's organizing, like we have a flyer that we're distributing and meeting up out in public to talk to people about this whole COVID situation, to try to maybe open some eyes and find some new members. So that's mainly the stuff that we discussed.
Awesome. Well, appreciate that, brother. Thank you guys for taking the time. And yeah, I heard some lively conversation going on there. And I know that part of this, like as John has always reminded me, is part of this is just building community, right? We encourage everybody to use the website to actually meet each other. We hope that people are meeting in real life, but we also understand that many of us live our lives where we don't have people to talk to about these things often. And so you get around other people and there's just so much to share. There's so much to talk about that. So I really appreciate that. One thing I wanted to add, I know Martin wanted to share something, is like many of you realized, and like Kurt was kind of saying, this is almost sort of advanced, right? But the goal, at least for me in suggesting such an advanced thing, like, hey, somebody's in trouble, what do we do? Is to maybe help us realize, holy shit, this isn't something we've thought of. Like we need maybe to step our game up on how we could organize this. And we've been discussing, there was an app that is around, but we're not sure how functional it is. It's called Cell 411. If anybody wants to download it and play with it, Cell 411. And it literally is made perfectly for Freedom Cells. You can send out emergency alerts that say like, hey, I have a flat tire, or I just, cops bugging me, whatever it may be. And you can create cells on the app, and everybody who's in that cell would then get an alert. And then the situation we just talked about, you would proceed. So what I would encourage for you guys to do, those of you who have a couple of members or one or two people, or even if you're just a single seed for a cell right now, is to start role playing and thinking about how would you handle that situation. John will remember that years ago, a lot of police activists and kind of cop watch activists we would do role playing. We had our cameras, and let's say John's the angry cop and he's grabbing me. How does the rest of the group respond? If you've never been in that situation, it can be very unnerving. It can be very, you can freeze. So we had, one person come up front with their camera, then that person is backed by this person at this angle and this person at this angle, and really just strategizing on how to go about that. And I also shared in one of the groups that way before we were talking about Freedom Cells years ago in Detroit, I heard about people doing this, and they were calling it groups of angels. And it was whenever the city was coming to shut off some old lady's water for owing $10, because they've had this crazy water situation in Michigan. Whenever they were coming to turn off somebody's water, they would send out the alert, they would call their team, and people would literally block the streets and stop the cars, or they would surround people's houses, hand in hand. Nobody showed up with weapons or any of that. It didn't need to get to that level, because sometimes just simply coming out and saying, hey, we're here as a community and we're not going to allow this to happen, can be enough of a message. So while this might not be a situation that hopefully we have to deal with very often, I think it is one that we should also plan for equally. And one other note I want to add is that we did get an email recently from somebody who said, I'm not interested in guns. I don't want to own guns, and I'm not really that interested in that whole thing. Can I still be a part of a Freedom Cell? And the answer is absolutely yes. Freedom Cells is not pro-guns or anti-guns. It is a decentralized concept that people can use in any way. So if your cell is, anti-gun or not into that, well, then go take, a MMA class together. Go take a self-defense class together. Learn how to, work with knives or whatever sort of things. The point is being able to defend yourself. But that is not the sole focus of Freedom Cells. A Freedom Cell could be exclusively focused on permaculture or peaceful parenting or unschooling or how to grow your own food or encryption or crypto, or it could be interested in all of those things and at different points focus on each of those things. So I just want to make that clear. And I know Martin had something to add, and then other than that, I think I'll see if John has anything to add, and then we're at our 2 hours, so we're going to wrap up. But Martin, go ahead and share what you need to.
Yeah, what I like to add is about the plans that were thought out by the multiple groups. And what struck me is how complicated they are. I don't think I don't think it's necessary to have them that complicated. Even starting out simple, but just being there. And I picked up something about a human chain. I think that's all you need, maybe ever. The thing is, if the state is powerful because we are a soft target individually, we are easy to handle because we're just one. And if one is suddenly 20 people, then it becomes a whole lot more expensive to do whatever the state wants to do. So by having 20 people show up, which is not high tech, there's no complicated plan here, but just by having 20 people show up, it becomes incredibly more expensive to do whatever you want to do. So stuff doesn't have to be complicated. Just showing up will do.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Martin. So, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I think I muted you.
Some of these plans, they wouldn't look all too bad in an Ocean's 11 getaway plan or something, some movie. There's just no reason to make them that complicated. Life is really simple if you want to.
Sure, brother. Yeah, Martin's suggestion is don't turn it into Ocean's 11. Keep it simple. All right, John, I'm going to throw it back to you if you had anything else to say. I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for Johan and for everybody else who shared and for participating. We started out with close to 50. We still got 33 hanging out, so I appreciate everybody who's been here. You want to say anything, John?
No, I don't have much except that I think Johan is an absolute badass, and what you guys are doing over there in India is super, super cool. And he mentioned, there's not a rich protest culture in India like there is here in the States. So I think that makes it even more admirable what it is that they've accomplished over there. They're essentially birthing a new protest culture. So I just want to relay that to everyone else here where, it doesn't take a whole lot to get some momentum and some excitement going. The first thing to do is just to take action. And a lot like Martin was saying, we don't have to overcomplicate things. We just need to do stuff. And a lot of times people get caught in their head and thinking and worrying about risks and what do I say? The flyer needs to be perfect. I don't know if we can do this protest. People may not show up. What if the cops show up? The important thing is just to go act, just to do it, just to take action. And, maybe it doesn't work. Maybe the messaging was off. Maybe your small town or your city isn't ready for a lockdown protest. But there's only one way to find out. It's to actually go do it and then regroup from there. Throw a bunch of stuff up at the wall and stick with whatever sticks to the wall. So that's my thing. Super kudos to Johan for really charging. And if you notice, it wasn't just like we're doing this stuff and it's kind of working, it's kind of not working. Johan and his crew are very conscious of organizational strategies and tactics and what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of people in a decentralized anarchist movement are hesitant for leaders to come about. But there are people that are natural leaders and that have that talent for organizing. And so it's important for those people to rise up and to lead by example and to teach others how to do that as well. But at the end of the day, whether you have where you have a natural talent for leading, or whether you feel like you have leadership in you, you just haven't come out of your shell, we can all simply just talk to other human beings about this idea. And so just to drive it home one more time, I want to reiterate the challenge. I would like to challenge the network as a whole to go from 4,800 people on the website to over 10,000 by the end of the year. So that means we have 2.5 months to get it done. So I think we can accomplish that. That means we'll have to do like less than 2,500 each month. So we really got to get going. Find some resources, find some graphics, join the Telegram groups, share interviews, YouTube videos, and always include that link, freedomcells.org. So I always share stuff that I promote, that I publish, or stories where people are like teaming up to stop oppression or whatever. And then it's like, join us here at the freedomcells.org and include that link. Just include it in a bunch of your stuff. It's germane to all sorts of stuff that we're talking about. Like you share a story about mandatory vaccines or COVID pass or lockdowns in Australia getting real bad. And then you just have a little message like, we need to prepare for this, or things are getting really serious, guys. Join our network here. And I always say how many people too. Join over 4,800 people that are actively organizing to resist this kind of stuff, freedomcells.org. And then the other thing, if you're not in an inter-cadre group, try to form one up with your brother, your friend, the guy that you share articles with and stuff. It can start small. Having 2 people in a group is much better than having one, and just get things going. And then if you already have a regional group, one thing someone can do if they're like in Massachusetts, get the hell out of that state, I would encourage you. But if you're in Massachusetts, you create a Telegram group or a cell, Massachusetts Freedom Cell, and then just see what happens from there. Invite your friends, invite your libertarian buddies, invite your permaculture buddies or whatever, and then you could build the intercadre groups from there. So let's try to reach 10,000 members, and I look forward to chatting with you guys all on the next conference call. Shout out to everyone that participated and shared, and thanks Derrick for leading the call.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. And one other thing that John just made me think of, and then we're going to wrap up, that as Johan said, with India not having much of a protest culture or sort of the awareness of a lot of these things, it's similar in Mexico. I've had a number of people reach out to me since I've been in Mexico and say, hey, Derrick, there's no truth, conspiracy culture researchers. There's no channels like that in Mexico. There's no Spanish speaking people doing that. So I'm trying to make an effort to start translating my own work and speaking Spanish so that I can cultivate that here in Mexico. Because obviously, as many have pointed, this agenda is a global agenda. And so our agenda to build freedom cells needs to be a global agenda as well. So whether I'm in Houston or Mexico or wherever else, we're going to be trying to cultivate that same mentality, and we're going to be doing a lot of good organizing. So I appreciate that. And I hope everybody takes inspiration from today's call. And for those who joined us late, this call was recorded. I'm ending the recording right now.